Hey everybody, welcome back to The Turnout. I'm your host, Aloy. Don't forget to check out usaaudiences.com for special event movie screening invites. This is actually, I've been late on a video. If you can't see the difference in how I look, I actually got eye surgery, so I no longer have to wear glasses, but it did take me a little bit to kind of recover from said surgery. and but very, very happy to, be coming back and um, getting ready to go ahead and start getting a new slew of videos done. I actually already have a few recorded back when I actually had glasses, so they just need to get edited, but those will be out very soon. But today I wanted to go ahead and just bring you guys a quick video because just recently, Netflix, because of some of my past TV show watching, I've been watching a whole lot of dating reality shows. Love on the Spectrum is one I just watched. I'll probably be doing a video about that pretty soon here. But if you've been here, like, at this channel for a while, you know that I've watched, Love Is Blind. I did the whole, like, I tried to predict, who was gonna stay together, who was gonna not be together, and I think because I watched Love Is Blind, Married at First Sight was suggested to me on Netflix, so I was like, "Okay, let's go ahead and check this show out," because I was like, it has to be good because I have immediately noticed that it had 9 seasons was on it was showing me season 9 on Netflix, but I think it's, like, on, like, season 12 or 13 or something. So the show's been going on for a while. I'm like, "Okay, well, let me watch this." And it's interesting because the makeup of each of the shows is actually quite similar, but they just switch it up ever so slightly, right? So both of them actually start off with 100 men and 100 women, and they try to whittle it down. But if we compare it, all right, let's just start comparing because that's what this video is, right? So the very first thing about Married at First Sight is that they are screened by who are called the experts, and the experts decide who will be together. And it's actually called Married at First Sight because literally the first time they see each other is at their marriage ceremony. Whereas with Love Is Blind, same thing, 100 men, 100 women, but they let each other figure out who they wanna be with, and then they propose, and then that's where we get the next, step. They don't actually get married up front, they have to wait. So, th I if I'm comparing the shows just on the ability to be entertaining, I would say that Love Is Blind, I feel, was more entertaining. But for reality shows, that's not necessarily a good thing. That doesn't make them better shows per se, but definitely more entertaining. But the thing about these shows is that they have different stakes, right? One is, are they gonna want to be married at the end? Whereas the other, Married at First Sight, is, will they want to stay married or get a divorce? And I noticed that there was a few, like, major differences. The main one being, in terms of me watching it as a viewer, is that there were 6 couples on Love Is Blind and only 4 on Married at First Sight, whereas Married at First Sight had 13 episodes and Love Is Blind had 11 episodes. So, like, that right there, I think shows you just the dichotomy between, and the difference between what each one is bringing to the table, right? More kind of dysfunctional, uh, more kind of dysfunctional couples in a shorter season, or fewer kinda okay couples in a longer season. And I could tell when I was watching Married at First Sight, there were definitely a few, like, things that they were doing to pad it out. They had one whole episode where they were just like, "We're halfway through and we're gonna give everybody an out right now." And it's just like, okay, like we could have entirely skipped that episode. Like literally we could have skipped it. But if you're looking at the four couples here on Married at First Sight, when I was watching the show, it actually was pretty evident, which unlike Love is Blind, where everything was kind of a crapshoot and you really didn't know who was going to say yes or who was going to say no. Really, just watching these four couples, it became very easy. The first couple here the first couple here, the dude was staying out all night with his friends, apparently was hooking up with other women, and she was at home crying all the time. And I'm like, if they stay together, then that is just there's something wrong with the world. So I was definitely hoping that they would not be staying together, and then they didn't, right? So the second couple, one was, I mean, they were both just kind of cool people, but she was a virgin and he kind of had issues with that, and so did she. And that was a big stumbling point. And I was like, yeah, they probably shouldn't stay together. And then they didn't. And I was like, okay, cool. The third couple there, though, they were the weird one. They were the only weird one in the group because they were volatile and like actively seemed like they hated each other half the time. And they ended up staying together. And I'm like, all right, more power to you, I guess, if that's how you want to live your life. And then the fourth couple there, they were just great. Like, they took their time. They weren't like completely intimate up front, but they like, they got together. They figured out how each other worked. They both had patience with each other. And then in the end, they stayed together and they were actually pretty happy during the reunion show. So I was like, yeah, I like that. But this show didn't really have many surprises. It was more just us seeing how it ended up. But it was obvious how it was going to end up, as opposed to as opposed to Love is Blind, where you had all kinds of craziness. I mean, just look at the thumbnail. Like you got this dude over here going like, what? I mean, it's just crazy. And you had so many, like you had people who were trying to go after the others, partner, and people who seemed like they were going well together, but then they weren't. And it was just like, it was just not, it was a little bit of a cluster in the end. But here's the interesting thing. So the big thing with Love is Blind is that they all got to talk to each other, and then they got to pick who they liked the best and all of that stuff. And then they got to propose without knowing who the other one was, but they got to choose. And I feel like that right there immediately added another layer of volatility to the show. Because as soon as you have an expert say, well, all of these traits line up, and it might not be perfect, but there's so many things that are working towards them getting together, and they have gone through all of the painstaking time to ask the important questions and really whittle it down to like, we know that this couple should work on paper, and it's up to them whether they want it to continue or not. Again, like if they everything on paper works, but one of them is a virgin and they're not really flexible on that, and the other one kind of has issues with that and all that stuff. All right, cool. Well, then you can't really get around that. Even if they end up staying friends because they're so compatible after the fact, which is what ended up happening. So, but when you go to Love is Blind is like, I shared my memory of my favorite dog with this guy, and he seemed really receptive, and now I'm in love with his voice, and now I want to marry him. And I was just like, oh my god, like there were so many issues with so much of that. uh, and I think like two of the couples ended up staying together in that one. Oh no, it was three of the six ended up staying together. One of them broke up but then got back together. It's a whole thing. But really, I thought that the if I had to choose which show to watch, I would probably watch Love is Blind. I just found it's just better. It was just a better constructed show, though I feel like the experience of Married at First Sight, if I was to like say I was going to be like a contestant or something, I'm already married. I probably would never do that. But just say I was in the situation where I was going to want to be on the show, I probably would pick Married at First Sight, because I also feel like having that extra person that's not me to make that decision. I mean, and they go deep into the questions. Like, they ask about sex, they ask about preferences, they ask about religion, they ask about height, skin color. Like, they ask everything. Like, what do you want out of a relationship? And kids, pets, all these sorts of things, motivation. So, like, that seems like it's just a better process that will likely get you better results. That's my guess. Maybe I need to watch a few more seasons of Married at First Sight, but after watching one, I probably would pick that show if I was going to be on it. But watching it, Love Is Blind is much more of a train wreck to watch. Much more of a train wreck to watch, and that's what makes things enjoyable in life, is how much of a train wreck things can be. But also, again, the stakes are completely different, because and I think it put pressure on one set of couples than the other. One is, you're engaged. So now you're just trying to feel each other out and see if you want to get married, right? So, and that is different than you are married. So I saw in the show that there were a whole lot of just, they were treating each other terribly, but they would be like, but we're married, so we have to try and make it work. That did not happen on Love Is Blind. Like, on Love Is Blind, they're like, "Oh, okay, I really don't like this about this person, so bye." It's like, we're not married, we're only engaged, so who cares? We actually don't have anything legal. There's nothing emotional, there's no social stigma on the fact that you would be divorced. There's all these other underlying things that are gone in Love Is Blind, and you can really just watch people be train wrecks. Whereas Married at First Sight, they are married right up front, and that does set a certain criteria of how you're supposed to act, not only for like the viewer and society, but in themselves. And I saw the people on the show treating the experience much different because they were married, quote unquote, married, even though at the end of 8 weeks, they were supposed to figure out if you want a divorce or not. But really, both shows kind of follow the same structure. There's like a meeting slash whatever. Then they go on like a honeymoon. Then they go back to town and they have to move in together. And then they have to meet each other's friends and meet each other's families. And then at the end, they have to decide if they're going to get married or stay married or get a divorce. So, like, all in all, the shows are very similar, and yet they are completely different based on that main core thing of, were they already married during the experience, which changes those expectations. So it's weird. It's weird. But it's also good. And if you're into dating shows, I guess, I don't know why I've been watching so many of these, but they're interesting shows to watch, because I like to watch how these relationships grow and stuff. And yeah, and obviously some of it's for reality and some of it's for TV. And I actually really enjoy the reunions, because during the reunions, then people can be like, yeah, like that scene, yes, that's how it was edited, but really, here was the stuff that happened before it, here's the stuff that happened after it, and they can kind of fill in the gaps, and it's just like, oh, well, now that scene makes more sense, whereas on the show, it was just very sensational. But if you've ever watched Love Is Blind or Married at First Sight, let me know which one you prefer. I've now watched both. I can't wait for the second season of Love Is Blind. I don't know why, but it's such a good show. It's such a bad show that it's so good. But if you've watched it, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Let's continue the discussion down there. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. That's at the Turnout USAA, and I do like to talk to people there. I recently was on an episode of Kristen Maldonado's podcast called Pop Culture Planet, so definitely check that out. And I've been your host, Aloy. This has been the Turnout. Thanks for showing up, and I will see you guys in the next video.